Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Ruben, and on today's video, we are going to be talking about a clique of women from the Senegambian coast who had an interesting relationship with the European slave traders. Please subscribe if you've not, and invite someone to also subscribe so that together we can be a part of this intriguing journey. Please, let's get to the video. Signares, the female slave traders of Senegal. The stories and horrors of slavery have always been depicted on the cotton and cane plantations of the Americas, with white slave owners building wealth from human capital. While these stories are credible, they often ignore the powerful cult of 18th and 19th century West African women who had their hands in the rotten pie of slavery, built wealth and untouchable societies on the Senegambian coast. Here is the story of the Signares. The name Signa comes from the Portuguese word senhora, which means married. For hundreds of years, French slave ships careened through the Senegal River and casted their ugly shadows over the land, capturing the natives as slaves and selling them off in faraway lands. As these European merchants and traders spent many months and even years away from their home countries, they began settling among the Senegalese people, especially in the islands of Gorée and Saint Louis. With time, these European merchants started having romantic relationships with the Senegalese women, breeding a mixed-race population known as mulattoes. Women in these kinds of contractual or temporary marriages became known as signares, and they lived in the upper echelons of the Senegalese society. These mixed-race children of French and Senegalese background took these relationships with the Europeans to new heights or depths. Because of their lighter skin color, they were treated better than the dark-skinned Africans, and they married only wealthy European slave traders or merchants. Through these marriages, their temporary husbands bought them lands and houses, and they became the sole middlemen for the goods brought by the Europeans. On realizing how profitable the slave trade was, the Signares began using their power and wealth to sponsor slave raids and gold panning upriver, and eventually they built slave dungeons called Maisons des Esclaves and became the key suppliers of slaves, gold and ivory to the European traders. The Signares built powerful circles of their kind and ruled Gorée and Saint Louis, and their wealth and influence protected them. When a Signare married and the husband had to go away but promised to return, they performed an interesting ritual. They followed the man to his boat, collect his last footprint into a handkerchief and hang it by their bedside and wait without remarrying until the husband returned. If it was clear that the husband was not going to return, they can remarry, but a child from the previous marriage would bear the name of the departed father and inherit from the mother. Signares also brought a new innovation into the fashion scene of Senegal. Late each afternoon, they walked the streets of Saint Louis in their colorful spangled silk dresses and conical hats. The abolition of slavery and the end of colonialism killed the presence of the storied Signare culture. Although these dresses are not so present in Senegal today, they have become costumes worn on carnivals and are created by very few people to relive the forgotten days of the worldly Signares. Victoria Albis was one of the Signares who lived in Africa but enjoyed the pleasures of a European world. She is still famous in Senegal for building the Bathily Women's Museum. Arguably, the most successful Signare was the reputable Anne Rossignol, who was born in Gorée in Senegal but moved to France and then to the French colony of Saint-Domingue, which is today's Haiti. There, Anne became one of the 3 richest women of color, but during the Haitian Revolution, she migrated to Charleston, South Carolina in the United States and became known as the first African to voluntarily move to the USA. In the US, she established herself as a planter and a slave owner and died a very wealthy woman. During the period of slavery and colonization, women who only have interest in rich European men were not only in Senegal, but dotted around the African coast in other names like Nara. In Angola, Crispina Perez was the most powerful mixed-race trader who exchanged slaves for European goods. But she was arrested by the Portuguese crown and tried in Portugal for using black magic in the Portuguese crown's attempt to dwindle her power and influence. But she came back to her home in Cachou in Angola years later and continued living her plush life in the many mansions and estates she owned. Views on whether the Signares should be condemned for their involvement in slavery or be celebrated for their brilliance in carving a culture of wealth and luxury out of the horror of slavery remains divided. Please feel free to go to the comments and share what you think about the Signares with us. Thank you for watching. Please support us by subscribing, sharing, liking and following our social media pages for more historical contents.